My wife dressed up as Donald Duck to cheer up her male secretary. On the night of his birthday, she secretly had a candlelight dinner with him. To make him happy, she even pretended to be Donald Duck and gave him gifts. Later, the secretary posted a close-up selfie on his social media, captioning it, "You're my best Christmas gift." Seconds later, she changed her profile picture to the same photo. Everyone thought I'd get jealous and call her for answers like always. But this time I just quietly hit like. Around midnight, when my wife Emily returned home, I was on the couch browsing their cuddled-up pic. She wore a red Donald Duck costume, smiling happily. Meanwhile, the hickey on David's neck was hard to miss. All the comments were our mutual friends teasing, saying they weren't scared I'd get jealous. By then, Emily had already changed out of the costume and into her regular office attire. Smelling of alcohol, she snuggled up to my back and teasingly said, "Honey, why didn't you make honey water for me tonight? You always did before." Whenever she came home drunk from work events, I'd play the dutiful husband, brewing honey water for her without fail. I passed her my phone, asking coldly, "Care to explain?" A flicker of panic crossed her face, but she quickly dismissed it. "Eric, why are you jealous again? David's a poor kid from the countryside who's never celebrated a birthday. As his boss, isn't it normal to give him a gift? And come on, we've been married for years. Do you have zero trust in me?" There it was again. Every time she crossed the line with David, she'd pull out this excuse. But a few days ago, when I invited her to celebrate my birthday, it was different. She looked indifferent, saying, "A grown man celebrating a birthday? How childish." My enthusiasm was quickly doused, and I canceled the dinner reservations. Seeing my silence, she leaned in to kiss me. "Don't overthink it, honey." She rarely took the initiative, only when she angered me and wanted an easy fix. As I looked down, her smeared lipstick caught my eye. Realizing there might have been more with David, I quickly pushed her away and stood up. "I'm tired today. I'm going to sleep." Hearing me use her oft-used excuse of rejection seemed to shock her. With a stern face, she called after me, "Eric, haven't you had enough? David's my secretary. Helping him during Christmas is just normal human concern, right?" "Yeah, totally normal. And David's so resilient. Despite his background, he made it through school and found a job. Can't you be a bit less biased?" "Yep, very impressive. I'm disappointed. After all these years, and you still don't trust me?" Her words were full of praise for David and disdain for me. In the past, I would have argued with her. But after a long day at work, I just wanted to rest. I cut her off. All right, I get it. I'm not mad. Are you done?" Both of us, including myself, were surprised at my new tone. I had always spoken gently to her. I softened my voice. "I'll sleep in the guest room. Got work tomorrow." Ignoring her stunned expression, I left the room. After tossing and turning all night, I overslept the next day. As I hurriedly got ready and opened the bedroom door with my coat in hand, I saw Emily already seated at the dining table. Surprised she was up so early, I asked, "I've got a meeting today. Also, where's my breakfast?" Emily's eating schedule was always erratic, and I worried about her health. So I'd get up early, prepare breakfast, and remind her to eat. She never touched the breakfasts I made. The heart-shaped eggs I prepared became a joke among her friends. I coldly replied, "I didn't make your breakfast today. Eat at work." With a frown, she asked, "Eric, are you still upset? Didn't I explain it all?" Checking my watch, I dismissed her with, "Yeah, got it," and left. At my design job, I dove into work. With an important project assigned to me, I was on high alert. In the afternoon, Emily called, saying she learned some recipes to cook for me and wanted me home early. I was taken aback. She'd never cooked before, not once in our marriage. I took care of all the housework. Worried about her nutrition, I'd call her mom to find out her favorite dishes. Honestly, I wasn't a natural cook. For her, I became a pretty good chef over time. When I started cooking, I'd get cut or burned. My hands still carried scars. Once, delivering a meal to her at work, I left my coat behind. When I returned, I found David eating the lunch I made. Seeing me, they weren't even embarrassed. David just smirked. Eric, this dish is great. Better than last time. That's when I realized every meal I brought went straight to David. That day after coming home, when I angrily questioned her, she just impatiently said, David has a sensitive stomach. He can't eat takeout all the time, and he's been working overtime with me. Why are you being so petty? By the way, your braised pork is pretty good. Make more next time. David loves it. Ever since that conversation, I rarely brought her meals anymore. Whenever she asked, I used working late as an excuse to decline. Eventually, she realized she'd been a bit overboard and took the rare step of giving me a gift as a peace offering. Thinking it over, I still had a sliver of hope and decided to accept. After finishing up the tasks my boss gave me early, I headed home. When I opened the door, the place was dark. I turned on the light but didn't see Emily anywhere, and the dining table was bare. Holding back my anger, I took out my phone and called Emily. Where are you? David's place got robbed after he got home from work, and I couldn't leave him alone. I went to check on him. There are some leftovers in the fridge from the lunch David and I got at a restaurant. You can eat that if you're hungry. I stayed silent for a while before she cautiously asked, Eric, you understand, right? I chuckled lightly, sure, go be with him. She sighed and was about to say something else when I heard David's gentle voice on the other end. Emily, can you help me grab a towel? Emily quickly said a few things to me before hanging up in a hurry. Staring at the phone screen, I couldn't help but recall how, after every shower at home, Emily never once helped me with a towel. Back when we first got married, I once asked her to grab a towel, but she was just sitting on the bed playing with her phone. After I called out a few times, she impatiently replied, Why are you so lazy? Can't you grab it yourself? And now she was leaving me, her husband, to help her secretary with a towel. I put down the phone, didn't bother eating their restaurant leftovers, and made a couple dishes on my own. By midnight, Emily still hadn't come home. I didn't wait up for her. I brushed my teeth and went straight to bed. I remembered how before, whenever we fought or when she stayed out late, I'd toss and turn, unable to fall asleep. Once, I joked about it with her and she said, If you can't sleep, take sleeping pills. Telling me won't help, right? I thought I'd have trouble sleeping again, but surprisingly, I slept soundly that night. Waking up refreshed the next morning, even noticing Emily hadn't come back all night, I felt surprisingly calm. Not long ago, a well-known international company noticed my work and offered me a high-paying position as their chief designer after learning about my experience. At first, I immediately turned them down because of Emily, and they even tried to persuade me for a while. But that morning at the office, they reached out to me again, this time with sincerity. I didn't hesitate, I accepted the offer. That night at home, I sent my resume and a well-organized portfolio to the company's email. When I shut the computer, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders and a renewed sense of energy. The next morning, as soon as I got to work, I asked to talk to my boss about resigning. I explained my reasons and promised to complete my current projects before leaving. My boss was a bit surprised and reluctant but said they understood and were happy for me. Back at my desk, I started on my tasks for the day. While I was busy, I got a call from Emily. Why didn't you reply to my texts? Are you at the office? I paused and opened the app to see she texted me an hour ago asking if I needed to work late today. Where else would I be if not at the office? I'm not like you, running your own company and never home, but I have my own work to do too. Emily grew up in a wealthy family. After we got married, she inherited the family clothing business and always looked down on my job, thinking it was embarrassing. She rarely invited me to her company, but she forgot that over the years, I stayed up countless nights sketching designs to help her, even to the point of damaging my eyes. Yet thanks to my designs, her company launched one hit collection after another, growing from a small business to a big, thriving company. Back then, she'd cheerfully say, "Thank goodness I have you. You've been such a big help." But as the business grew, she instinctively downplayed my contributions. My words hit home, irritating her. "Eric, can you not speak to me like that? I'm busy too, and I've been working at my company every day, and David's been staying late with me. You don't care about me anymore, but do you have to pick a fight? I felt a bit helpless because I was only using the same tone she used with me. Why was she suddenly upset? Besides, if I hadn't seen the pictures David posted on his social media, showing him and Emily having fun outside, I'd have believed her made-up stories. Did you call just to argue with me? I'm busy, so if that's all, I'll hang up now. Seeing I was about to hang up, she quickly replied, "Today is your 30th birthday. I've arranged a party for you as a way to make it up to you. I'll pick you up tonight." I was surprised and glanced at the desk calendar, realizing today was indeed my birthday. I usually don't make a big deal out of birthdays. I might just have dinner with some friends, and Emily never really paid attention to my birthday, let alone throw me a party. When I hesitated to answer, Emily got a bit impatient. All right, it's settled then. I'll wait for you outside your office tonight." At 6 in the evening, after getting Emily's text, I grabbed my coat and headed out of the office. As soon as I reached the ground floor, I saw Emily's car parked out front. She stood by the car in a black dress, a slight smile on her face and a hint of tenderness in her eyes. But as I walked closer, the smile on her face froze. "Is this what you normally wear? It's your birthday party, and with so many people around, couldn't you dress up a bit?" I glanced down at my t-shirt and ripped jeans, not really seeing a problem. Plus, she let me know last minute. No time to go home and change. Ignoring her snide remarks, I headed straight for the front passenger seat. Just as I reached for the handle, the window rolled down, revealing David's face. Ever since he became Emily's secretary, he's been more or less glued to her side. No surprise he's here today. David was decked out in a black suit and tie, his hair perfectly styled with gel. Compared to my casual look, I felt a bit shabby. He smirked, throwing a jab my way. "Eric, sorry, I get a little car sick." I managed a faint smile and took the hint to sit in the back. I was used to it by now. Whenever I was in Emily's car, she'd willingly drive, and David would squeeze into the front with some excuse, which Emily never seemed to mind. David and Emily chatted the whole ride, her laughter a constant response to his words. Back when I shared work stories with Emily on our rides home, she'd never respond and just found me annoying. "Why are you so irritating? I've had a long day, and now I have to listen to your nonsense?" she'd complain. I gave up after a while, and silence settled between us at home. We arrived at the restaurant soon enough. As Emily and David walked side by side, I followed behind, noticing how their black outfits made them look more like a couple than boss and assistant. Inside the private room, I saw some mutual friends. I greeted them and sat down. Halfway through the meal, David lifted his glass toward me. "Eric, happy birthday. Cheers to you." Before the glass could reach his lips, Emily nervously snatched it from him. "David, you're allergic to alcohol. Remember what the doctor said? Don't think a little sip is okay." David looked at her with such tenderness. It was hard to miss. Suddenly, I was reminded of the last time we went out, when I had a seafood allergy. Emily forced me to eat shrimp in front of everyone. Emily adored seafood, and she always took me to seafood places or brought it home for me to cook. Sometimes she'd pack shrimp and crab porridge for me but sneak out the shrimp and crab without telling me. Seeing me itch and break out, she'd just laugh, calling it desensitization practice. I ended up in the hospital a couple of times before she grudgingly agreed to stop. Since then, I always kept allergy meds in my bag, unsure when she might joke again. But today, I realized she wasn't careless. She just didn't care about me. I crossed my arms, amused by their little drama. Emily's tone shifted, expressing dissatisfaction. "Eric, don't give David a hard time. He's allergic to alcohol, so just drink it yourself." I replied calmly, "My stomach's upset today. I'd rather not drink." With that, the atmosphere tensed, and Emily looked displeased. The awkward moment was broken as the server rolled in the cake. All right, the cake's here. Eric, blow out the candles and make a wish." Someone in the crowd suggested, helping me sidestep out of the situation. David grinned at me. "Thanks to you, Eric, I finally get to try this cake," he added, sounding a bit wistful. "I grew up poor and never really had birthday cakes." Emily looked at him sympathetically. "Don't worry, Next birthday, I'll get you a big cake. When someone coughed, they snapped out of their intimate gaze. Emily nonchalantly passed me a slice, and I took it with a smirk but didn't eat it. David suddenly smeared frosting on Emily's face. Instead of being mad like you'd expect, Emily just playfully said, "What are you doing?" On her first birthday with me, I pulled the same move and she was disgusted. "So messy. Don't ruin my makeup." Ignoring my apologies, she left me embarrassed in front of everyone. After that, I rarely ate cake again. They laughed and enjoyed their cake while I quietly checked my phone. Noticing my untouched cake, Emily seemed annoyed. David, picking up on it, taunted, "Eric, why aren't you eating?" Emily drove for hours to get it. "Did my unexpected presence put you off?" At this, Emily's face fell completely. "Eric, what's your problem? I threw you this party, got you a cake, and you're still not happy? And David's my secretary. It's normal he's with me. What are you even bothered about?" I set the cake aside casually. "I'm not bothered. He can come if he wants. And I don't like cake. If you two enjoy it, have more. I've got work to do. I'll head out." With that, I quietly left, took a cab home. Emily came home fuming. "Eric, are you out of your mind? Why the attitude? Do you want to embarrass me in front of everyone to feel good?" I didn't respond to her accusations, simply swapped shoes and headed for the guest room. Seeing my silence, she angrily hurled her purse at my back. "Can't you be a bit more sensible like David? And since you're so unhappy, let's just get a divorce. I'm really fed up with you." This isn't the first time she's brought up divorce. Every time we fought, she'd easily throw the divorce word out there. She knew I wouldn't leave her. Whenever she mentioned divorce, I'd give in and beg for her forgiveness. But now I just quietly looked at her and said, "Fine, let's divorce." The air went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Emily gave me a doubtful look, not believing her ears. "What?" I said. "I agree to the divorce." With that, I tossed the divorce papers I'd already prepared right at her. "I've got the divorce agreement ready. Just sign it." Emily sneered. "Didn't expect this from you, Eric. Playing hard to get now. Huh? But don't think that just because you said this I'd forgive you." And with that, she stormed out, her heels echoing as she slammed the door. She didn't come home that night and I slept well. In the following days, Emily and I entered a cold war. I left early and came back late every day, and Emily often didn't come home either. I was busy with work and trying to switch to an overseas company, so I didn't reach out to her. Instead, she couldn't help but message me. She'd send photos with David or videos from clubs, hoping to make me jealous. In the past, when we fought, Emily would leave home, and I'd call everyone, acting pathetic, pleading her to come back. But not this time. I didn't reply to any of her messages. I just acted like I didn't see them, tossing my phone aside. Maybe noticing I hadn't replied, one morning, she was there on the couch when I got up. Her eyes stared at me, her expression a mix of emotions. "I haven't been home for days." Is the company about to go under?" I asked. She closed her eyes out of frustration and said angrily, "No, the company's doing fine. Plus, I'm not just away for one night. It's been several days. I'm your wife. Why don't you care when I don't come home? Why don't you call me? Why are you so indifferent nowadays? What's up with you?" Watching her get all worked up, I suddenly remembered that anniversary. I had told her days in advance to come home early, prepared decorations and a huge meal, but waited for ages with no sign of her. Worried, I called repeatedly, even asking around. She finally picked up, and in the background, I heard her at a bar, friends laughing. Emily snapped at me. "Eric, can you give it a rest? We're adults, you don't have your own stuff to do? Do you have to cling to me like a dog? Even in marriage, we need personal space." At the end, she just said, "Stop bothering me," and hung up. I chuckled softly. Even in marriage, we need some personal space, right? Emily, hearing those familiar words again, opened her mouth as if to speak but couldn't. I ignored her hesitation, grabbed my jacket, and headed out. "I'm off to work. Oh, and make sure to get me the signed divorce papers." Interestingly, even though Emily started coming home on time, whenever I'd bring up divorce, she'd change the topic. Initially, I thought about following my lawyer's advice and waiting, but I couldn't resist and picked a time to take the papers to her office. I wasn't expecting to be stopped by the receptionist for not having an appointment. I figured not many at her work have seen me, even though they know she's married. Emily never had me visit. When I did bring her lunch, it was always on the sly, and sometimes picking her up meant parking in some hidden spot in the garage. "Can you call her and say her husband is here?" The receptionist seemed surprised, about to say something, when a voice chimed in. "Oh, hey Eric, looking for Emily? Sorry, Emily rarely mentions you, so the front desk didn't recognize you." I looked up to see David with a knowing grin. "Emily's in a meeting. I can take you to her office to wait. Next time, just tell me, I'll get you in." Tensing my fists to hold back the anger, I walked quickly towards the office, leaving him behind. Once inside and alone, David dropped the pretense and said provocatively, "Emily doesn't want you here. Why are you here?" I scoffed. "Who are you? I don't need to report my actions to you. I'm her husband. It's only right I'd be here." David's face darkened, ready to retort, but Emily walked in. Seeing me, her eyes briefly lit up. "Eric, are you here to pick me up?" "No, I'm here to drop off the divorce papers." At my words, her expression fell. Pretending not to notice, I handed her the papers. "Also, the company owes a lot to my design work. I've noted it in the property division agreement. If everything's fine, sign it today so we don't waste more time." My words caught others' attention, while I remained unfazed, ignoring their curious glances. Emily responded coldly, "Eric, what do you mean? Still not done making a fuss at home and now here at work?" David, sensing the purpose of my visit, seemed happy and approached to grab Emily's hand. "Emily, this must be a misunderstanding. Don't let it bother you." Emily, however, pulled her hand away. "Didn't I tell you to call me Manager Lou at work?" Ignoring David's hurt look, she focused on me. I replied seriously, "I think I've been clear. If you don't sign and return the divorce papers, I'll take it to court." I turned around and left without another word. By 10 p.m., Emily still hadn't come home. Based on her usual timing, she should have been back already. But I didn't bother calling to check. In the middle of the night, I got a call from Emily's friend. "Eric, Emily is drunk. I'll send you the address. You need to come pick her up." "It's too late, and I'm busy. I have work in the morning," I replied. Sensing my tone was a bit harsh, I quickly added, "Maybe you can get her a room or have David pick her up. Isn't he Emily's assistant?" There was silence on the other end. In the past, whenever Emily called, I'd drop everything and rush to her side. But honestly, I had Emily's best interests in mind this time. Before I heard a response, the call was disconnected. Oddly enough, instead of stumbling and drunk, Emily sat next to me watching the game, looking completely sober. She frowned, clearly unhappy. "Weren't you busy?" Without looking at her, I kept my eyes glued to the TV. "Yeah, it's getting to the best part. Couldn't miss it." Seeing I'd spare her no attention, she jumped up, slammed the door, and went to the bedroom. I thought she'd start one of our silent fights again. But surprisingly, the next few days she called daily, asking if she should pick me up after work. I declined, saying I was working late. One day, Emily called, insisting I come home early as she wanted to cook for me. I hesitated, recalling her past flakiness. She remembered too and urgently reassured me, "It's true this time, I promise." When I got home, I found Emily, who never cooks, had made 2 bowls of noodles that looked like a mess, eagerly waiting for me to join her. "Eric, I know your birthday's been rough lately, so I made you long life noodles as an apology." Her eyes were hopeful. "I learned just for today. Come see if they taste good." After years of marriage, I'd never dreamt of Emily cooking for me. In the past, I'd have been thrilled. But today, I felt nothing, just a tinge of disdain. "What is this?" I asked. "Noodles?" I stirred them briefly with my chopsticks and pushed them aside. With a dismissive wave, I knocked them to the floor. Scoffing, I muttered, "I wouldn't have known if you hadn't said anything. Looks like someone's dog threw up in a bowl." For years, every meal I made was met with criticism. Never a kind word, just constant nitpicking. Too greasy, too salty, too bland. Even dogs wouldn't eat your food. Seeming hurt by my remarks, Emily stood there, shocked, amidst the mess. Ignoring her wounded expression, I said nothing and headed to the bathroom. The next day, while Emily was out, I packed my things and moved out. When Emily found I was gone with my belongings, she called endlessly. First, I ignored her, then blocked her. Yet, Emily waited outside my work. I dodge or ignore her every time. Finally, one evening, she caught me. She looked hurt. "Eric, why didn't you pick up? Do you know how long I waited outside? How long did I wait for her before? Hours sometimes just to pick her up. Once, I waited till midnight at her office, only for her to tell me David took her home when she couldn't find me. Annoyed, I frowned. What do you want? She bit her lip, eyes welling up. Why did you move without telling me? Calmly, I replied, we're divorcing. I don't have to tell you everything. I shook off her grip and walked away. Our divorce was no secret, drawing public attention. People knew I'd designed clothes for Emily's company. Many offers came my way from other companies and private clients, but I refused them all. A month later, I got my divorce papers and wrapped up my work before awaiting my upcoming flight. Since my design project went well, my boss invited me to an industry gala. I knew he intended to introduce me around. Networking couldn't hurt, so I accepted. Although uninvited, somehow Emily and David showed up. David seemed out of place, clearly uncomfortable. I wore a custom gray suit for the event, looking sharp and confident. Emily noticed, a hint of regret in her admiring gaze. I simply glanced her way, then resumed my conversation with industry leaders. Minutes later, murmurs arose behind me. Turning around, I saw Emily, embarrassed and leaving. David reached for her hand but got shrugged off, landing awkwardly on the floor. Emily didn't look back as she left. Curious, I'd never seen her so upset with David. Were they fighting? Someone nearby scoffed. Their company wasn't invited. Guess her assistant faked an invitation and got caught. I suddenly remembered, last time Emily went to meet an important client and for some reason, she brought along David, a new subordinate. She said it was to give him some exposure, but he ended up saying the wrong thing and offended the client. If I hadn't gone to apologize and promised to provide free design drafts, the company might have lost that key client and even lost money. I shook my head and laughed to myself. Knowing how proud Emily is, whether she knew the invitation was fake or not, there's no way she'd let David off easy. Sure enough, within a few days, David got fired. He started a big scene at the office, refusing to leave. But after all the pointing and gossiping from coworkers, security had to drag him out. A few days later, after dealing with some matters here, I was getting ready to board a flight abroad. Emily came looking for me while I was packing. When I opened the door, her face looked exhausted and pale. "Eric." She reached out, trying to grab me, but I stepped away. I gave a cold smirk. "What's up?" Seeing how distant I was, Emily's eyes started to water, filled with sadness. "Eric, please don't leave. I've already fired David. No one will bother us anymore. Can we give each other another chance? Let's start over, okay?" Seeing her so pathetic, I couldn't help but chuckle. "Emily, even without David, we can't restart. I've lost all love for you because of what you did. Let's part on good terms, okay?" I raised my hand to shut the door. "Can I at least see you off tomorrow?" "Whatever." The next day, I was in the airport lounge, ready to board, but Emily never showed. I wasn't too surprised. After all, we had nothing to do with each other anymore. But I wasn't expecting the call I got right after. "Hello? Is this Emily's husband? I'm calling from the emergency room. Emily had a car accident, and she's in critical condition. She's been calling for you. Can you come to the hospital?" I suddenly remembered a time when Emily gave me seafood on purpose, and I broke out in hives, struggling to breathe. Emily was nowhere to be found. I managed to call her with my last bit of strength, only to be repeatedly hung up on. When she finally picked up, I heard her cold voice, "It's just an allergy. You're not dying. Take some medicine and you'll be fine." Before she hung up, I clearly heard David's voice and her laughter in the background. Maybe because I didn't respond, the caller repeated, "Hello? Hello? Are you there?" I smirked and coldly said, "We're divorced. Call someone else." After hanging up, I turned off my phone and boarded my flight abroad. I heard that Emily survived but lost both legs and would have to spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. But by then, I was living a new life overseas, busy but fulfilled. My life was just beginning.